Okay, well, everybody, I'm so glad that you're here today to join us for the WF1 Connect and WF1 related pages for financial workers and childcare workers. Today is our soft launch training, our first for this group, and it's happening on April 29th, 2021 for reference. Okay, where we're going to start today is I'm going to start by displaying the agenda to you. And that means hopefully that we can all be in agreement on what we're about to do. Okay, I'm going to pop it over here. And again, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, I can't really see you right now, but I know John's going to be watching. Okay, we don't really probably have to do a lot with housekeeping. Just to let you know, the training is scheduled for 3 hours, but there will be a break because I know it's difficult to listen for 3 hours. But again, we hope this is interactive for you. We kind of already know the agency's roles and programs. I'm going to skip past this only because I think it'll eat up time. But please do feel free to interact with each other as well. Today we're going to use our Sandbox training database. What that means to us is it has fake data in it, no real customers there. You are going to be using a training username. If you currently have a WF1 account, you're not going to be using that today. The reason why we want everyone set up consistently is so that we're looking at the same level of access to things. You'll notice how that matters as we go through the training. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the umbrella rules in our system. And I bet you're thinking to yourself, what does that mean? It sounds so silly to say things like umbrella and rules together. What I want to explain though here is how this actually factors in to how we have viewable and non-viewable items within WF1. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to share my desktop so I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm popping things over, and hopefully, because I just did that, you are now viewing the umbrella rules document. Could you confirm for me, John?
Yes, we are.
Wonderful, thank you. What this does is provides a visual for how folks can and cannot view items in WF1. WF1, again, is the case management system that staff use. Those staff can be ES workers, which, you know, you're probably familiar with them using it already, the employment services side. They can be financial workers, and they can be childcare workers. Those users log into WF1, and WF1 is a web-based application, which means that you use a browser like Google to access it, like Chrome, or you can use Edge, Microsoft Edge, or even Internet Explorer, although we know Microsoft is phasing that product out and moving toward Edge. You're going to use a username that we're going to send you. You don't have to fill out an access form, and then you will set your password the first time you log in. We'll cover that part in just a minute. When we get there, though, so that you know, when you are assigned to a case, and how do you get assigned? Maxis tells WF1 that you are assigned to a case. It's not something that you even have to do. It's that information that's flowing from Maxis into WF1 that tells us that you are assigned. When you are assigned to a case, you have the ability to view quite a few things, and we're going to go over that today, the things that you can expect to be able to view and do in WF1. Because you work for an agency, which I call provider, that means that the other individuals who work for your provider will also have the ability to access parts of the case that you are accessing. Why does that matter? Why do you care? It matters because if you have an absence or you are out on vacation and you would like your team members to help you, they will have the ability to do so. I will show you what this means, but essentially we set up WF1 to allow for the sharing of cases and the helping out with cases if you work for the agency that is serving the individual, the agency or provider that is serving that individual. We provide all of this in this document, which of course is located in WF1. gives you these examples, and they're not going to mean a ton right now, probably. So I'm just going to explain just sort of what it is, and then I'm going to show it to you in real life. So with that, what I'd like to do next is go back to the agenda and move past into logging in. And this is where things get a little fun because, of course, I'm going to log out so that we go through the same thing. This is where we're going to need that spreadsheet that John popped into the chat and that you received in an email that I sent right before this meeting. It's that thing, if you scroll up in the chat, it's up by John, and your name appears on it with a username. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pop the URL or website address into the chat for you to select. And you'll select that link, and what you'll do is you'll type the username in this box right here. I'm actually going to make this a little bigger. I don't know about you all, but I struggle sometimes to be able to view these things. Go to 125. Hopefully that's helpful. We're going to pop that username into the username box right up here, the one that you have in the spreadsheet. Feel free to go ahead and do that. I'm actually right now, if you're wondering which browser I'm using Internet Explorer. But again, like I stated, Chrome and Edge work as well. I'm just going to hang tight a little bit for you to type it. You won't want to type what I'm typing here because I'm going to log in as myself. So don't type Atidema because you won't know the password for that one. Okay, and then I want you to proceed to the password. Now, let me just quickly remind you that what we are doing right now is for the purposes of training. And what that means effectively is that this will not be the way that you really get into Workforce One. What's going to happen instead is you are going to get an email that is going to give you your real username, and you are going to then type that in, and then you're going to go through a process of setting up your password for the very first time. We're going to skip that step right now because we just want to get you in. This is what we are mirroring right now is the real situation that you will have once your account has a password that you established. You'll come to the website, you'll type in your username, and you'll type in your password. What you all are going to type in right now is password #1. And I bet John's going to pop it right into that chat. There it is. Password with a capital P, #1. And I will type in my password at the same time that you are doing that. Okay, now I'm going to do something that I don't expect all of you to do with me. And that's going to be, I'm going to switch my profile. Yours should already be set to the correct profile. What this is doing, in case you're interested, is that some of us have multiple profiles. And this happens when maybe we work for more than one agency, more than one COFR, which stands for Contractor Federal Funding Recipient. Maybe we're a security administrator, and thus we have that profile. What we do for ease of use for individuals who have more than one profile is we give them a switcher to be able to go between the profiles instead of giving them multiple accounts. That seems like not the way to go, right? You log in once, but see, for you, it's going to be so much simpler because you're just going to have that single login. So there's no need to switch your profiles at all. It's going to just happen. Okay, now I want to make sure I'm following that agenda there. I'm going to talk about a few things that you'll notice right away. We put up messages on Workforce One's dashboard, which is this right here. Those same messages often will display on the login page. That was the page that we were at to start with. Don't log out. I'm going to log out and log back in because I want to make sure that I'm making a couple of things clear here. This is the login page to Workforce One. I'm not logged in, and therefore I'm able to view the system alerts that are on this page. There's a confidentiality agreement, which we want people to really take in. And then there's a link to forms as well. These are the things that a person would need if they didn't want to log in or couldn't log in. Notice that we're also including a link down here to our help desk, which we will cover later, and the phone number for login issues. But I already logged in, and you did too, hopefully. So I'll log back in. And I'm going to switch my profile really fast, pretend I'm not doing this, because you don't have to do this. It's not needed for you. It's just because I have so many different accounts here. Well, one account, but multiple profiles. Here I am on my dashboard. And basically, the first thing we're going to need you to do. So this is key takeaway number 1 for you that you're going to want to teach as well. Here it is. This link right here, My Preferences. So when you log in for the very first time, you're going to want to select this link, and you are going to want to set your email address to the correct email address. And when I say correct email address, what I mean is the one that you can be reached at that is not your SIR email. Your SIR email is the one that you're using in Maxis. We will have your SIR email probably pre-populated in there because it's the one that we got from Maxis when we created your account. The reason why we want your email in Workforce One to not be your SIR email is because we will be sending you messages about things like changes to the system, outages, anything like that. So what we need is an email address that's going to work for you that doesn't go through Maxis's system. It doesn't change anything about how you currently do your business processes. We're not trying to do that. We just need an email address at which we can reach you. Step 1 again then is My Preferences on the right-hand side here. Change your email address, verify your phone number, and make sure that that is set the way that you want it to be. You never need our help changing your email address or phone number. You don't have to put in a ticket for that. It's something you have the ability to do as the logged in user. Okay, I'm going to go back to my dashboard. This is a little bit of a navigation trick, and I bet it doesn't surprise you if you've ever spent any time on any website. This is a typical standard. If I select the logo, it goes back to the dashboard, which is my home page. Let's pretend for a second, though, that I wanted to alter my home page. I actually have some preferences. This is more just kind of an FYI that allows me to actually change what displays as my actual home page. It's right here, preferred home page. Dashboard is probably going to be what you want, but it's kind of cool, right? That you can decide which one you want. So there's other preferences in here that you might want to take a look at as far as things that date ranges for searches, etc. Do you want page panels to show as open or closed? We give the user some ability to tinker with their appearance of Workforce One. So kind of cool, right? Okay, so I'm on my dashboard because for me, I'm probably going to want my dashboard. If I'm serving individuals and I'm assigned to them, I'm going to want my dashboard because that's what shows up here is my caseload right here. And I also get to look at my referral queue, and these are going to be things that have come over as referrals from the referral queue because that's what starts a case in Workforce One. Let me just kind of quickly explain the flow. We have this interface with Maxis, the system, of course, that you're used to using, and that interface pushes referrals over into Workforce One. What that includes is a bunch of information about the customer. This is kind of your eligibility piece, the part you're doing effectively. It's pushing it over to Workforce One in this referral. And that means that every customer you're serving through MFIP, DWP, and SNAP, most SNAP customers, because some SNAP customers actually don't come from a referral. But what is happening is we're getting a whole bunch of data from Maxis already. And that's really helpful. What ends up happening then is someone goes and processes the referral queue, accepts the referrals, and then creates an application, a very tiny page in Workforce One, which gives them then an application date in Workforce One. And then there's an enrollment page. And this is done by your ES worker. Your employment services side is doing this step today. And then once that occurs, once there's that enrollment in Workforce One, what it means is the person is going to be reflected, notice this, by sort on program, they're going to be reflected as enrolled for MFIP, right here. So kind of cool, right? I mean, there's a lot that happens in the background that gets them all ready to this place where they have a bunch of data that came from Maxis, and Maxis is also going to be pushing status updates. It comes straight from Maxis into Workforce One. We're going to cover some of that stuff. I think maybe it might be kind of exciting. I don't know. I mean, feel free to chat if you're like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Or what does that mean? Go ahead and chat. Okay, so now we've talked a little bit about the dashboard. Now what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that might be of interest here on the dashboard. This one's going to be the big one. This link right here, connect messages unread. So this is thing number 2 of the important things I'm sharing. And I'm just going to pull this over because I like to pretend your faces are looking at me right now. It's a little unnerving to do virtual training because I can't read your expressions and don't know if you're following, if you're interested, if you're liking or not liking, but I'm going to pretend I can see you right now. So essentially this is thing number 2. Number 1 was my preferences and changing your email. Here's important thing number 2. This link right here, connect messages unread on the dashboard. That's going to be what happens when you receive a message from a customer. Oh, thank you, Jody. When you receive a message from a customer, you are immediately going to go here. So here's the chain of events. Customer sends a message via the app. I'm going to show you the app later, but right now we're focusing on you as the staff person. Customer sends a message. You're going to get an email indicating that you have a message waiting in Workforce One. It's going to go to that email address that you gave us when you did the My Preferences. Remember, that was important thing number 1. When you gave us your email and My Preferences, we will then send those notifications that you have an email, or sorry, not an email, that you have a message waiting for you in Workforce One that came from a customer who sent it either to your case bank team, if you case bank, or to you individually, if that's how you manage your cases at your provider. It's going to tell you you've got a message, you're going to log in, and you'll find this link right here, connect messages unread. So far, we've basically done 2 things. We've logged in, and we right away have got a link. If I select that link, guess what happens? I go straight up to my messages that are waiting. And what that's going to allow me to do is to quickly navigate right into that read reply if I want to that message. And you can do the same thing with the person that you have assigned to you on your caseload. When you logged in today, we actually had done some pre-work for you and made sure that you had a customer and that you had messages waiting. So you can do exactly what I'm doing right now. This puts you into the conversation reply. So your next step would be to send a message to Brenda. Replying to Brenda. Brenda's given, I need help figuring out which forms to fill out. And here's something crazy I'm going to try. Did you know that you can provide links in your messages? Look at that.
And we have a comment.
We have a comment. Oh, Annie, with that email, will the client be able to email us directly, or will they only be sending messages in Workforce One? Great question, Kurt. Okay, so with the email address that you are providing in Workforce One for you as a staff person, that is not going to be the way the customer's messaging you through Workforce One Connect. Workforce One Connect is an app that allows them to send messages to you. It's not an email, which is why I'm trying to be careful about the language I'm using. When I say messages, what I mean is the customer has sent you a message from Workforce One Connect, and it knows who is assigned, the app does, based on the interface between Workforce One and the app. And it knows you are assigned because of the interface between Maxis and Workforce One. So think about it like a chain, right? Maxis tells Workforce One that you are assigned. Workforce One tells Workforce One Connect, what the customer uses, the mobile app, that you are assigned. So it's like a chain, basically. Then the customer is able to message you or your case bank, which would display as a case bank to the customer. And then that's how you are going to be told, why you would be told that you have a message waiting. You'll get that email from Workforce One. Now, what, Kurt, you are also asking about, I believe, and I'm going to demo this later, so it's going to be clearer later. There's a contacts part of the app as well. That is a different thing than the messages part of the app. It's just a completely different page within the app. That contacts part of the app does include names, email addresses, and phone numbers for assigned staff. If the assigned staff are part of a case bank, it will display the information that we associate with the case bank. If, however, the staff are not part of a case bank and are instead managing the cases on their own, what we will push to the app will be the email that we store in Workforce One. And I understand there's been some angst about that from some individuals, and that you've asked us for what we could do, maybe to either conceal that email, change that email. Ma has let us know about this conversation, and I think what probably needs to happen is some more analysis to figure out what the best options are. We can certainly do something because, you know, we have control over both Workforce One and Workforce One Connect. So I think hopefully that answers your question. I want to show it to you though too in the app, because I think that's going to make a ton of sense to folks that weren't part of that whole exchange. Right now though, I want to kind of head back here to this, because remember what we're trying to do here. Remember the story I've told so far? I've logged in because I received an email as a financial worker that I had a message waiting. I selected messages on the dashboard. I then decided to come in and reply to this, and now I'm communicating with my customer. Trying to remember what my name is right now. It's Annie. I'm really actually Annie now. There we go. So Brenda, excuse me, is my customer, and I'm Annie, and I'm replying to Brenda, my customer. I've sent Brenda a link to the forms that I want Brenda to complete. Notice that I can actually add staff to this conversation as well. Isn't that cool? You can decide if I want to add, you know, I think I'm going to add Heidi here. Neat, right? You know what else I can do? I can actually change this to document needed. That's the conversation category, and it matters because you can then find these things easier in the future. I can also put a due date on here. That'll display in the app to the customer. Actually, it might be kind of fun to do that. Why not? I could send the customer a file if I wanted to. Instead, I had chosen the link, right? I chose instead to do this. And then I can just say send message. I can just select that. And now I have just sent a message to my customer in response to the one that they sent to me. It was that quick.
Another comment.
Oh, another comment. Okay, good. If we work in a case bank and we want all the notification messages to go to the email attached to that case bank, do we put that case bank email in preferences instead of our personal work email? No. That's a great question, Jeremy. You do not. And the reason is because here's how we're going to know you're case banking. If in Maxis it's indicated that you are part of a case bank, that information pushes over into Workforce One. We know which case bank you're part of based on your supervisor ID, coming also from Maxis. So we're doing a little bit of magic to be able to keep you all sorted, basically. And if you switch case banks and you end up in a different one, we're going to know from Maxis because it's going to push it into Workforce One. When you're part of a case bank, Workforce One is going to send that case bank information over to the customer. So no, for those in a case bank, what you enter in My Preferences doesn't display. When it becomes sticky and difficult is when you're not part of a case bank and you're operating maybe more like a team, but you actually are individuals, not a case bank, not truly one in Maxis. That's when it's going to not know that you are operating like a team or as a team, and thus it's going to push that email you're sharing in Workforce One, the My Preferences. And that's why we need to do some analysis around what we could do for those individuals that are not case banking in Maxis, but are operating more like a team in Workforce One. That part of adding staff to a message is very good. I like it. Okay, cool. Yay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. This is good. I like when we can have more of a conversation. I don't feel then like I'm just sort of yelling into the ether here. It's just this virtual thing is a little hard, isn't it? Even though we've been doing it for a while, it just sometimes still feels like it's a bit of a challenge. Okay, did you notice how when I was done with the email, sorry, not email, message, basically what it does is it pops me back to the Connect message summary. So it was that simple. So you as the financial worker, I think one of the most important things you're going to want to train, or childcare worker that you're going to want to train, is that the process for you is relatively simple. Really what this is doing for you, this new app, it's just giving you a way to communicate with your assigned cases, with your customers. And really, Workforce One's a lot bigger than this, right? There's a whole lot more going on in the system, but the parts that you are really going to focus on, it's going to be these messages. You're going to be sending information to the customer, maybe attaching documents. You're going to be receiving some, and I'm going to show you that later too, because I'm going to show you the loop. We're actually going to look at the app for a little bit so that you can see what the customer is experiencing too. But this is really kind of it. And I know that probably seems super simple, and you're like, really? You know, I thought it was a big deal. I thought this was some huge thing we had to learn. I'm going to show you a lot more than this, but to be totally honest with you, this is the part that the financial and childcare workers have to master. Just what I've shown you already. Updating their email address, checking messages, responding to them, creating them. That's it, really. We'll do a couple of sub things under those, but that's really kind of, it's that simple. Okay, so there's a lot more that I want to cover though. So let's actually talk about what if the customer didn't initiate? What if it's that you actually want to send, you want to start a new conversation with the customer? Maybe you need something from the customer. What you're going to want to do here is add new conversation. And all of you who are following along as your logged in user right now have the ability to do what I'm doing. Let's go through these fields together. This is also in the user guides that we shared with you. It is automatically going to know who I'm messaging. And how does it know that?
Where was the button for the Connect message at?
I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Where was there a button for adding a message?
Where's their button? Absolutely. Right here, add new conversation. Right? And I'm inside of a person's record. And how does it know? How do you know, rather, that you're inside of a person's record in Workforce One? This. The left navigation shows up, and you see the person ribbon. You have the person ribbon right here. How did I get to this person? If I back it up one more time, back to the dashboard, I have a couple options. I originally got here through this link that was there that I had messages waiting, but my caseload is also here. If I sort on name, you'll notice my favorite person is the one that I was just in right there. Brenda Connect is right here. I can select Brenda Connect's name, and it's going to pop me straight into Brenda's account in Workforce One. And I know because I've got this left navigation, I've got my person ribbon. Connect Messages is right here in this general section. This is all in the user guide. It's going to pop me over to the summary. This is where I will view all of the existing conversations. I'll have the read reply, but let's say that I actually just want to create a brand new one. Right here. But I see I have a message here in the chat. I'm going to answer this question from Liz. For case banking, it's my understanding every member of the team will get an email when we get a message. Will we be able to turn that off so only one person that is assigned to monitor messages that day gets the message? Well, at this time, Liz, with the way that it's built, no. We have the email notification based on agency or provider. Remember, I use those synonymously. So the entire provider decides, does the staff who work for our provider want to get email notifications that they have messages waiting? The answer is yes, then they all get them. However, here's a really good thing, because I know that sounds a little arduous. You're like, okay, wait, we're all going to get this message. Then how do we know? Well, the good news is that if you're part of a case bank, it is tracking read receipts in Workforce One. If one of your team members goes in and reads the message and handles the message, it appears as read for the case bank, which means that you're not all going to get these, well, it's unread, it's unread, it's unread, it's unread. You know, if there's 5 of you in the case bank, one of you reads the message, now it's read, because it's assuming that you're working together as a team. Does it mean that the message goes away once it's read? Nope. So if one of you wants to go in and see what happened, you can still do that, even if your colleague read the message and did something with it, which, by the way, you would also be able to know, because you can come into that conversation and you can view what your colleague did. If they wrote back, if they attached a document, if you downloaded a document, there'll be a history of what's gone on with this conversation. So your question though, Liz, in order for us to be able to do something like that, we would have to make a change to those email notifications. I think, John, what we'd like to do is maybe keep this one for our notes here on the training, to see if maybe we want to put some kind of a analysis out there as a team. And when we talk about that, what that means is we get together and we talk about the technical considerations for doing something, how we could do it, and then we go and get permission to do it from our funders. So in your case, that would be DHS. So some of the people on the call today. Yes, thank you, Liz. I appreciate the background. It helps us to have that. It's really helpful. That's, you know, that's in part what this training is for as well, is to have you tell us what you're hearing, what you know to be the case from you doing your jobs. Thank you. It helps. Okay, I'm going to go through these fields. This is the button to add a new conversation. So this is you as the staff person, you are starting a new conversation with your customer who's using Workforce One Connect. The first thing I want to do is I want to select the conversation category. This is important because this will help you find the message in the future, or not message, the conversation in the future, so that we can get the terminology right. Conversations have multiple messages, or could have multiple messages. Conversations is like, let's pretend that I send John a message. John writes me back. Then I write John back. So that whole thing has 3 messages in it, but it's a conversation, right? Because we're writing each other back. It has one subject. It's like hitting reply in email. You're not having a brand new conversation every time. You're replying to an existing one, and thus it's all within that single conversation, multiple messages. It's possible, though, that your conversation is a single message. What if you send them something and they don't write back? Well, then it's just one message and in a conversation. The conversation category matters because it's going to help me find this in the future when maybe I've got a lot of different conversations having gone on with my customer. Maybe I want to indicate that I need a document and I want to say, please submit your employment verification. Or actually, you know what would be better as the subject? Employment verification. I can mark it as high priority. What is that going to do? It's probably just like email, right? Yep. So it's going to give us a exclamation point, and it's going to turn the text of the subject inside the app for the customer red, like the color red, indicating to the customer, pay attention to this. This is important. This is going to be helpful for you if you're looking for something from them that they maybe have not given you that they really need to do quickly, or maybe they end up in sanction. That would be a time to really want to use the high priority. Privacy level matters. What this does is if you indicate that this conversation is private, the only people who are going to be able to read the conversation and respond to it are going to be people that are case assigned in Workforce One, which means that if you are counting on a team member to help you out with this in the future, they will not be able to unless they are case assigned. And the reason we have private conversations is for those instances where something is pretty sensitive and you want to make sure that you are only allowing those folks who are literally assigned to the case to read it. I would say you would use this for cases where maybe you've got something, I'm not even really sure like what would be the documents you met, maybe medical, I don't know. that you would want to mark it private. Everything in Workforce One is private though. So we don't want to confuse this with security and privacy as a whole, nor do we want to confuse it with private records. That's a setting that comes from Maxis. If the record itself is marked private, it doesn't mean that every conversation within the record is private. It means that the entire record is private. It's kind of a bigger deal, if you will. So think of it like this. If Maxis says that this record is private, what happens? That comes over from the interface from Maxis. It locks the record down, which means that only those individuals who are case assigned to the record can get into it, really, because all that displays for folks that are not case assigned to a private record is just kind of some very generic details. You know, that the person exists, but we don't know where they're getting served because we're using privacy coming from Maxis when the record is private to help us when there's situations of violence, right? We're locking the record down because we don't want folks to be able to get address information, agency information, you name it. We're really trying to limit what people know about this person in Workforce One. The conversation being marked private could be done for someone who doesn't have a private record. It's done when the conversation itself is something that only those that are case assigned in Workforce One should be able to review. I'll show you case assignment in a little bit. If you're confused about what does that even mean, I'll show that to you in a second. Okay, so I'm not going to mark this one private. I'm going to put a due date on it. I love these due dates. By the way, this displays to the customer in the app. Oops, let's get the date. Okay. Hey, Brenda. Submit your required documents. I'm trying to be quick here. You also have the ability to mark things boldface. You have the ability to use numbering and bullets. These are your kind of your rich text editor options. I can add people if I want. Remember when I did that before? Maybe this time I want to add Susie to this conversation. I can add a file if I want to. Hey, let's do that. Maybe let's not add a sprint review though, huh? Because that's a huge file there. Let's put some release notes on here. And again, of course, this is kind of funny because actually I don't want that huge one. Let me get something smaller here. There we go. I'm just going to send a file. I mean, it's crazy because normally you would send something that's really relevant, and I'm just adding a file to display how that works. Now, all I have to do is send the message. What you should be tracking at this point is that the process is really the same, whether I reply or I start a new conversation. The only difference between the two things that you've seen me do with messages is this button. I selected add new conversation when I was starting out a new conversation, whereas when I replied, I used this link, read reply. Remember, before I did that from that other page that we looked at, because it links straight from the dashboard. If I'm reading and replying, it's going to come from the dashboard. I also have a search feature, which we will cover later, to go and find the messages. Like, let's say that I'm not on the message, so it doesn't show on my dashboard. We can totally go get it either way. And that's going to be with that search. So again, the only difference really was that whole button here. And when it's a new conversation, I did need to fill out a few more items because I'm not replying to an existing one. Like I had to fill out the subject, right? Okay, so we've gotten through the messages. Now, let's pretend for a second that you've got a customer who loves to keep replying to the same conversation and it's gotten old and moldy because you have resolved it. Maybe you want to close the conversation. How do you do it? Well, if I go into an existing conversation, I'm going to have a button, close conversation. And oh, by the way, if you're wondering why am I seeing like this crazy tags and stuff, this is an update that we have that's not in yet. I'm pretty sure. Please feel free to confirm if I've got that one wrong, Heidi. I think that one's already in, like we just haven't pushed it to Sandbox yet. Okay, so close this conversation. This button right here would allow me to basically make it so that the customer can no longer reply to this. This is going to be important when, like, let's say that your conversation you're having is, thank you, Heidi, that the conversation you are having is actually one where you've asked the customer for something that's time specific. You know, maybe you're getting those, eligibility things all sorted, maybe some documentation that happens early on in the case, and you just want it to be done. You don't want the customer to just kind of use that as their ongoing, sort of stream of consciousness and talking with you or communicating with you rather. So what you're going to want to do is just close it. If you close it, then the customer can't just keep. It works well. So this is just, it's so simple. You just close the conversation with this button. This is in the user guide too. Okay. Now ticklers, we don't even have that option here, but we refer to it in the agenda because these are options that your ES workers are going to have. They have the ability to send ticklers. Ticklers are to-do items, if you will, in Workforce One. I can totally show them to you if you want to see them. It's kind of an internal messaging system, and I know you have the same thing in Maxis. You have something kind of similar there. We assumed as financial and childcare workers that you wouldn't necessarily want to be able to send ticklers, nor would you need to, because you have your own system. You have your own processes, and we don't want to make you have any type of duplication there. Likewise, case notes. Workforce One has case notes too, just like Maxis and like MAC Squared does. In this case, we got rid of the case notes off the messages. ES workers will have them though. In your case, as far as case notes go, you will have the ability to view them though in Workforce One. The things that are getting entered in Workforce One by that ES worker as case notes, you have the ability to view them. We set you up with that access. I'm going to go through that a little bit later once we're through the Workforce One Connect related stuff, to sort of say, look at all the things you get because you're logging in. You have all this information that you didn't have before. You had to wait for the ES worker to give it to you. You can actually come here now and you can sort of have a front row seat to what's going on with this case right in Workforce One. Okay, managing files. You actually will have the ability to download files from messages. And let's see, we don't have any files received here from this customer, but we will. I'm going to actually demo that. When I go to show you the full loop, I'm going to show you what it looks like to have you go ahead and actually download files. This is going to be important for you because, so again, we're talking about those important things. Number one is my preferences. Number two is getting to messages from your dashboard and starting new conversations, the messages functionality that we've already shown. Important thing number three, your ability to get a document from a message that came from the customer and download it so you can put it in your electronic document storage system that your provider or agency or county uses. You have the ability to do it. You can get it out of the message and you can put it where you need to put it. We also have our own electronic document system in Workforce One. You don't have to use it though. It's not required, but we have it. The good news is when you are downloading things and then putting them where they need to go, the document doesn't disappear either. It stays with the message, which means that if the ES worker needs the same document, they can go and they can get it too. It's still there. It doesn't just disappear because you downloaded it. So it's really nice to have that record, that history of all of the messages that have come, those conversations, all the documents that were associated, to have the case notes that were entered in Workforce One by the ES worker. You of course are entering your case notes over in Maxis and MAC Squared, as you always have. That won't change. Okay, so now we're up to the mobile app. And I'm mindful here, so it's 1 hour in now, and so I'm thinking, so let's talk a little bit about the break so you can look forward to that, right? So how about we think about a break around 2:30? I think that's halfway through. Is that right, John? We're halfway through at 2:30. So about a half an hour from now, thinking about having a break for you. I'm thinking of around 10 minutes, but of course I'll ask what you feel like at the time. But now we're going to get to the part that talks about the app the customer uses. And this is going to be the demo, right? You can't do this with me because you don't have the app, because you are the staff person. You are using Workforce One. The part that you've already observed me doing and that you've been hopefully following along with on your own in the sandbox is all the staff side, the Workforce One side. But now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the sharing and we're going to get my phone here. And I'm going to get involved here in this current meeting that we're in. And I'm going to start sharing my phone. Okay, I think it should be working. Yep. Okay. Everybody's seeing this, I think, right? Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Right-hand corner. Yay, thank you, John. Oh, I see a question. Liz, I want to take your question before I get into this because I get excited and distracted. Oh, and you know what? Oh my goodness. I realized something important. My hats. I haven't done the hat thing. Okay. Now I'm the customer. When the white hat is on, I am the customer. When we go back to Workforce One, I'm going to wear my staff hat that I totally forgot to put on. Okay, so first, Liz, your question. Is there an option to send information to support staff from Workforce One that there is a document available so we can have support staff pull and import those into your EDMS? Or will that only go to financial workers? Okay, support staff in Workforce One is a case role. If that person has access to Workforce One, then that person can absolutely be assigned to the case, and ticklers can be sent to that support staff to ask them to take those actions. Absolutely, that is possible. Now, the question mark that I have in my head, and maybe Heidi could help with this by popping an answer into chat. I am wondering, with regard to ticklers, did we give the financial and childcare workers with the access group access to add ticklers like from my tasks, or is that just absolutely not there for them? Just a question. And the reason is because maybe this is some feedback we would want with DHS to discuss whether we would want to give them access to add edit ticklers. I just want to verify that. Oh, Kurt, the Derby weekend is this Saturday. Is it the Kentucky Derby? Are they doing it? Are they allowing people in person? Interesting. I've never been. It's on my bucket list, actually. I have quite the collection of hats, which I can thank my great-grandmother for. She really got me into the hat thing. She always wore one to church, and I just idolized her so much. Anyway, okay, so thanks for the questions. This is wonderful. Workforce One Connect, how this is going to happen, I see your question, Liz, I'll get back there in a second. How it's actually going to happen is that the ES worker is going to establish the mobile user account in Workforce One first. And I probably arguably should have done that before I started down the demo of showing you the app, because the first step is that. So I'm going to have to circle back to that. What happens then after the ES worker establishes that user account for the customer then goes to their app center. So if I were to do it, like if I had done that step, I would have gone in and searched for the app in my app center. It will be available in 2 app stores, the Apple App Center and the Google Android App Center. The customer will download the app onto their phone, which I've already done, of course, so I'm going to skip that. It will show up as a little icon like all the apps do. They will select the app. Their username has already been established by the ES worker because they told the ES worker they wanted to use Workforce One Connect. They will enter their username, which of course I've already previously done, so it remembers me. Then they will set a password. I've already done that, so I'm going to type in my password. One other thing is going to actually happen here though. There's a consent, which I can cover later too, that the customer must agree to in order to use the app. And maybe actually even, John, if we could pop the consent into the chat when you get a minute, like just as a document that they could look at. It should be a spec somewhere in TFS. Maybe we can PDF it.
Sounds good.
And so what that customer is going to do is they're either going to accept it, which means they can use the app, or they're going to decline it. The consent does spell out important things, not just about data privacy and security, but also about things like data charges, what the app requires, who's responsible. This was put together through the legal teams of DEED and DHS, thinking about the need to have the customer be made aware and agree. We also took into account that some customers cannot agree because they're not of age to do so. So there is a different consent that shows if you have a guardian. Okay, I'm typing in the password. And I'm going to log in. It's going to show the WF1 Connect logo, which indicates to the customer something's happening here. It's logging me in so that I don't start selecting around and thinking nothing's happening, right? Okay, this is what they get. This is the customer side of it, right? You saw your page in Workforce One. This is the other side of the coin, the customer side. Down in the bottom, you'll notice the various parts of the app, the messages, the resources, the contact, and the settings. The messages part is the equivalent of what I displayed earlier to you. This is the customer's version of it. They, just like you, have the option to either reply to an existing conversation, like let's say it's this one, or they can decide to start a new one. And if they start a new one, they've got to fill a bunch of stuff out, just like you did. So you can kind of see, right? Two sides of the same coin. It's just the app representation or the Workforce One side, which is what you use. Okay, let's go back to this one, an existing conversation, because this is actually getting, to display to you the power of this app. Okay, so let's kind of get a sense of what happened here. So Bonnie is the customer in this case, not Brenda, Bonnie, right? This time we're talking about Bonnie. So Bonnie starts this whole thing out by sending the SMR for review. Bonnie has taken a picture using her phone of this form, each page of it. Here it is, like page after page, right? There's 4 pages in this form. Bonnie has already filled out the form, right? Sent, and now has sent it. Pretty cool, right? Then what happens? Megan, who is Bonnie's assigned financial worker, sends back a message to Bonnie. That's what's in the middle right here. And what Megan is telling Bonnie is, hey, great, thank you for your form. I need you to now fill out the verification of employment. Did you notice that there's a link right there? That's because Megan, the financial worker, sent to Bonnie an actual link. If I select the link, guess what? It takes me to DHS's eDocs. Straight from my device. Cool, right? And you might be thinking, well, okay, I can do all this in an email today, Annie. It's not that exciting. I feel you. But guess what? What's super cool about this for Bonnie is that Bonnie doesn't have to keep track of who's serving her. Bonnie doesn't have to know or care because Workforce One sends that information into the app and knows who's assigned to her case. So if it changes, Bonnie doesn't have to remember that. Bonnie doesn't have to keep track of contact information. And Bonnie has a way to communicate that allows Bonnie to do kind of a one-stop shopping here. Okay, so then Megan says, okay, I need these things. So then Bonnie dutifully responds, I know, perfect scenario, right? With the employment information that, and here's the actual form, the employment information that Megan, her financial worker, had requested. So this entire exchange happens in this compact place to get these forms back and forth. And you know what didn't have to happen? Nobody got in their car. Nobody got on a bus. Just downloaded the app. That was it. There was none of that, having to drive around, waiting. Things get lost in the mail. It's instantaneous. And sending these messages is really fast. I'm actually going to show you that at the end here. And what are the other parts of the app? This one usually gets folks pretty excited. The resources part allows the customer to get information about local well, resources that might help them. Notice that there's information about childcare, clothing. These are all things that are pushed from Workforce One that you'll be building. Remember my message to the soft launch providers. You'll be pushing this stuff into Workforce One, and then it'll go to the customer based on where they're getting services. So they're regional. Just give you an example of what displays for a single resource. You get the ability to navigate. That's that little pin. So if I select that, guess what it does? It opens up my mapping software and I can drive there or walk there if I live close, I guess. If I want to call that number, just select the little phone and it'll dial it with my phone. If I select the little email, it'll send an email because it pops the email address into my email client on my phone. If I select this little globe thing, it pops my browser open and then it goes right to that website address. A best practice for these resources is probably going to be to include a little bit of a description about any eligibility that might be there for these resources. This is in the user guide that we created and sent for resources. Okay, lastly, now this gets me to Kurt's questions from earlier. And by the way, thank you, John, for popping that information about the consent. And I will roll back to your question, Liz, as well. I haven't forgotten about it. When we were talking before about that whole case banking and what information displays and where does it go? So the messages, did you notice when I was in here? Basically, it's not displaying email addresses and messages because it doesn't need to. It's using the app and it's communicating straight with Workforce One. The contacts part is where we start getting into email addresses, right? If I open this puppy up, notice what happens. I get a phone number, and then I get this email address, which would not help, right? Necessarily, because it's actually something we've faked. But this is what, I think a little bit of the concern was about, right? Because Megan is in here as an individual, not as part of a case bank. And that means that Megan's information that's part of Workforce One is being pushed to the app. If I, as the customer, were to push this little email thing, what that does is it actually pops it into the email client, and thus I really am emailing. I'm not messaging, I'm emailing. And so I think that the conversation that we have to have, that I was suggesting we should have earlier, is really going to be around what to do about these, pieces of information. Do we want to display them? Do we not want to? And, specifically, do we want to give the staff an ability to determine that in Workforce One? So that's what we were talking about before. But you probably noticed from what I'm showing you the difference between the contact information and the messages part. Does that make more sense now that I've displayed? Okay. We also give the customer an ability to change the appearance of the app through the theme. I have 4 different choices. I just displayed the dark theme. There's also these high contrast themes, and these are for accessibility to make this a little bit easier for folks that have visual impairments. I'm going to go to the dark theme for a minute because I do like this one. The colors are pretty cool, right? Okay, and while I do that, I'm going to scroll back up and we're going to take a look here for Liz's question. So for case banking, everyone would get an email that a document is there, and then a financial worker on the team would need to send a tickler to support staff, just making sure I understand. Okay, great. Well, I think I have a question that I might have to ask of our team, because I'm thinking, does the support staff get notified of a message if they're assigned to a case? That's a question. I don't know if the answer is Heidi or John, either one of you. So like, let's say that the case has a primary staff, it has a support staff, it has the financial worker, and then maybe there's even a childcare worker. Let's say that the agency has the notifications for emails set to on. Does the support staff also get notified when there's message waiting, and thus the support staff might know to go in there, and thus maybe no tickler would be needed? I don't know the answer to that. Let's find out. With regard, though, to what you just laid out, would the financial worker send a tickler to the support staff to, hey, get their attention over there on the conversation? Well, they could, but that was a feature that we turned off, as far as I understand, for the financial workers, because the thought was that they wouldn't want to use it Maybe there's something different happening though than we thought we knew. So this is very helpful. I think the bottom line for us, Liz, would be to know whether you think that ticklers in Workforce One would be useful for financial workers. And I see Angela's typing too. Thank you. If there's feedback DHS wants to provide, feel free to do that. And Kurt says, yes, and I hope we can have that conversation at the end as I don't want to derail the great training. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm trying to, there's so much detail in the work that you're doing. And, I know that different providers, you do things differently. And we want to make sure that we're aware of it, of the complexities, and that we're responsive to them, and that we don't try this one-size-fits-all approach. I think you're going to find that our team, and I know you're having to take this on faith, right? Because a lot of you haven't really ever worked with us before, maybe don't know us very well, but our team is extremely active. Our business analyst team responds to those help desk tickets. We are constantly making updates to our website, not in an annoying fashion though, we're not taking it down all the time, but it is for us an ongoing, it's not a masterpiece, probably ever. Maybe in our eyes it might be, but we are always taking feedback from our users and stakeholders on how we can make things better. Okay. Oh, so Angela says the ticklers you are talking about are in Workforce One, not Maxis. Yes.
Annie,
Oh.
this is Heidi.
Yes,
I
hi,
wanted to
Heidi.
ask that same question. If they were actually talking about support staff that are working in Workforce One and would be assigned to the case, or if that support staff they're referring to is on the team of financial workers in that group.
Oh.
So that makes a difference. When they're talking about support staff, we need to know which group actually.
Good. All right. So Liz is thinking they don't need them, but back to Heidi's question. I think this is probably a bit my fault, because when I thought support staff, I was thinking the role that we have in Workforce One, but absolutely good point, Heidi. Is it possible that those individuals are somehow designated differently and are part of a case bank, and thus they come in with a different role? And secondly, Angela points out the difference between ticklers and Workforce One, which is what I am talking about, to be very clear, not the tickler system in Maxis. Okay, so we'll wait to get a little bit more clarification there. And while we do that, let me do this, because what I want to do is actually show you this in real life. Not nice, right? Okay, so let's pretend that we are going to send I right now, Bonnie, the customer, I'm going to send a message to Megan, my financial worker. And by the way, if you have some typing issues as the customer, you can dictate. You can dictate to this thing. You can use your little microphone just like you do when you text if you want to do that. They don't have to use the tiny keyboard if they don't like to. Okay. And maybe I want to attach something just for fun. Nah, not that. Let's go with select an image. I'm going to do this. Bingo. Okay. So what am I doing as the customer? Starting a new conversation, sending it to Megan, my financial worker. I'm attaching something. Note this though. This is that really powerful thing I was telling you about before, how this app knows who's serving this customer. So I don't have to keep track of it as the customer. This is how it works. It sends that information from Workforce One. And of course, again, in the case of Megan here, our financial worker in this example, that information is actually coming from Access. So I, as the customer, have the ability to select Megan and say, okay, I already did it, so I won't do it again. But that's really convenient for the customer, right? Because then they're not having to keep track of any type of contacts list for who is serving them, which could be out of date. So I've written the message pretty fast, right? All I have to do to send it is this little up arrow at the bottom or at the top. Boom, how fast it went. So that's the whole thing for the customer. It's just that simple, right? And then you might be thinking, so now what happens, right? So does Megan get some kind of notification that a message is awaiting? Yes, Megan's going to get that email. And then what's going to happen is Megan's going to log into Workforce One, right? And this is where we started our conversation today. So I'm going to check the question here from Kurt, and then I'm going to change my hats, and we're going to go back to being all of you as a staff person. So Kurt says, I've assigned all of my case aides as secondary staff so that they can access cases. As far as I know, we cannot assign more than one support staff. That's right. That's right, Kurt. That's right. You cannot assign more than one support staff in Workforce One. It's just one, but you can assign more than one secondary. That's true. Liz, yes, that's what I'm asking about. If we have our support staff, they deal with scanning and documents into EDMS that have been submitted, assigned to the cases that our case bank has, will they be able to see those and pull those documents? Now, Heidi, if I understood your question, I think it was leading us down a path of if they're assigned in the case bank and that comes from Maxis, that's better, right?
Hey, Annie, no, I didn't mean it was better or not better. I just wanted to know which one they were talking about so we could answer it correctly. So if Kurt has gone in and added them in Workforce One, then Liz's answer is the same as his, and that would be yes, those staff that are assigned would be able to get those documents and do whatever they needed to do with them if they're assigned to those cases.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably what I was thinking about though here was that whole, like, let's say that support staff person is in the case bank and that information comes over from Maxis. So what happens is it then auto creates an account for the support staff person in Workforce One. So where we started our whole training today, then that support staff person is going to then create that password for Workforce One. They'll have access, and because they're part of the case bank, wouldn't it be true, Heidi, that the notifications would actually go to them? Oh, for crying out loud. Yeah, okay.
Yes. What happened, Annie?
Are you all seeing this thing sitting on top of
No.
Okay, good.
Hopefully your computer is not shutting down for updates or something.
Yeah, I'm hoping it is not, in fact, going to do that. Okay, I am closing this and hopefully I can ignore it. So
your answer would be, I think, to recap, if the support staff are part of that case bank, then they would receive the same thing as the primary staff. We don't have any designation, I don't think, outside of part of a team for like a primary or support within just that Maxis group. They're all the same sort of level of staff.
Okay, wonderful.
Treated the same way as part of a case bank or team. Yep.
So in a way, I was kind of reading it into that as being a bit of an advantage in a way, if they were part of that case bank, because then there wouldn't need to be all of the concern about the ticklers, right? Because that support staff would get notified automatically, just like the financial worker would get notified when there's a message waiting. And maybe the support staff knows to go check it. And if there's a document attached, goes ahead and follows through with that. So I know I've seen a lot of messages here, Kurt, but they will not get notification or see the connect message unread tickler that we saw at the beginning, correct, as my secondary staff would not get the notification. Okay, so Kurt, again, your situation's a little different than Liz, I think. So I think I want to try to separate as much as possible so we don't get confused. What Kurt has done is Kurt has established in Workforce One certain individuals as secondary staff to the case assignment. And the question you are asking, Kurt, is whether the secondary staff will get that notification that goes out saying there's a message waiting, because they are in fact assigned. Will they get it? The answer is it depends. Because if the message was sent, or conversation message was sent to individuals, and that secondary staff person was not selected to be on that conversation, then they would not get a notification. If, however, they were, then they would get notified. Does that make sense? They can be selected. They can be added too. You know, like, remember when I showed you that, as I was kind of playing the part of the financial worker at the time. If I went down to select recipients and I added that secondary onto that conversation, even though the customer maybe didn't initially do that, then guess what? That person's in the future, and they're going to get those notifications. Okay, so Liz, they are not part of any case bank, so I'm thinking this won't work, and the financial worker will need to pull it, which is totally fine in my opinion. Okay. Well, the bottom line, Liz, is that if an individual does need access to Workforce One to be able to do their jobs, we can set that up, even if they're not part of a case bank. It's okay. You know, then they can do it, and you can send ticklers if you want to. These are all options. I think what I probably need to say here is that these are things that are options, and that we just need to know what you need so that we can get it set up for the way that you want to do your jobs. Okay, so I'm about to switch my hat, right? And I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Looks like I've got 7 minutes until we break. So now I'm the staff person. So let's see if I can get this done in 7 minutes. So you can see the loop, right? You remember where we left off? So Bonnie, the customer, used the mobile app and sent a message to Megan. Remember? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing from my Teams meeting here so that I can take over this way instead. Okay. Now, this is the sandbox. And I'm going to actually log out of the sandbox because I need to log over into our other site. Again, a test site. This is QA. Okay. Now, never mind what I'm doing right now. This is that switching profile thing again. Okay.
You're not sharing yet.
Oh, I'm not sharing yet? Oh my gosh. Thank you for that little reminder. And I also think that I probably need to check on something else really fast here. Just give me a second. Okay. Need to log in here as Megan. I will start sharing in just a brief moment. Okay, so I always think it's important to see this part. I'm going to share my desktop. Now, hopefully you are seeing Workforce One, and I've entered my username and my password, which is where we started this fun. What I'm going to do is I'm going straight in, and now I've got my dashboard. So far, this is all hopefully looking very familiar to what you had observed earlier. And guess what I've got? I've got a link, connect messages unread. Okay, what if I select it? That's going to take me straight into my results here. And guess what? Here it is, Bonnie Connect. This is the one that I wrote as the customer, Bonnie, when I was wearing the white hat. Can we talk? Oh, well, let's read reply. And here's the message that Bonnie sent from the mobile app. Nice, right? Okay. Now, what's interesting here in QA is I've got a few more features than I do over in the sandbox. I do have that send tickler. This is the thing that I was telling you that the employment services has. If I selected this thing, this is what we were talking about. Do you need it or do you not need it? This is the internal tickler system in Workforce One. Let's say that I wanted to send a tickler to another person that's working and helping. This is how I could do it. And it even types the message for me if I wanted to just be, hey, pay attention, I need you to review this. Maybe there's a document. So this is that thing we were asking whether you might want it. So ES workers today will have this as part of the launch of Workforce One Connect. There's also this manage files option. Now this is something that you as the financial workers do have access to. You will have it in a different way than the ES worker does though, because we assumed that you would want to download these documents and store them in your EDMS, not in Workforce One. What I would do in order to accomplish this is I would select the document itself. It will open up this window at the very bottom, and then I can do a save as to save it to my local device or to my access into my EDMS, and it stores it, in this case as a JPEG, because it was an image file that was sent. And then I can just go through the process that I would normally with the EDMS, with your EDMS. Remember when I said though that if I perform this function, then it doesn't get rid of it? So this document is still there. There it is. And if I go back to this, it's still there, even though I went into the manage files and downloaded it. If I were to download it, it does put a little note here that says, you know, if it goes into Workforce One, which of course, again, this is our EDS, excuse me, we call it electronic document storage. There would be a note that indicated that a document from this conversation was last uploaded on, and then it gives the date and time. And this again would be something the ES worker would be doing, because we assumed again that you would do this into your own systems, that you would not want to be necessarily using Workforce One's EDS right here. So this is where I could reply. Remember when we went through this during the sandbox part of it? And I could send, you know, back a conversation, not a conversation, a message. I probably would want to change this though to appointment. This is that conversation category. So let me communicate back to Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. Sure. We'll call you at 4. That work? Done. And then I can just, remember I can still add people. Still an option. Everybody likes that one, I think. And then I can send message and it's done. Neat, right? Can't see anybody, but hopefully that was kind of cool. So what I just did with this, how was it any different from what I showed you in the sandbox? Well, I completed the full loop. That's what's different here. Is that I literally, as a customer, sent a message, as the staff person picked up the message, wrote back. So if I go back to my app now, basically I would have the message as the customer that I just sent. Okay, so pretty cool, hopefully. Now I'm going to check my, oh, and it's 2:30. Ooh, okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a little break from sharing, I think. I'm going to check everybody, make sure we're good, check the chat, and then we're going to take a break. Okay, yes, good. Looks like we're good in the chat. So we're going to take a break for, I think, about 10 minutes. Does that work for everybody? We're doing pretty good on the agenda here, folks, in case you're wondering, because what's coming next is going to be the discussion of the rest of the Workforce One world and, you know, helping you to understand what's available to you. How else could this help you beyond the Connect messages? The good news, though, is, and hopefully it felt short. You know, I know maybe not because I've been talking for like an hour and a half, but that the Connect messages part, this new stuff, it's pretty minor, right? I mean, it's just a communication tool back and forth. Okay, well, I really appreciate the great questions you've had and your participation. And so let's take that 10-minute break, and I did it sort of on purpose. Let's come back together at 2:41. 2:41, okay? And then we will continue this. So enjoy your 10-minute break, and we'll be back. And it's okay to pop off camera if you want to, mute yourself. That would be great. Okay, thanks everybody. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you had an opportunity to take a little breather. Just want to make sure we kind of give a little time for everybody to come back in case they were waiting to hear voice. It also gives me an opportunity to pick that hat back up here. Yes, my job really is an excuse to wear my crazy hats. It's true. I'm going to take a little sip of water too. All right. Ma's back. She's typing there. It's awesome. Okay. I queued up some. I mean, where else can you wear it? No doubt, right, Ma? I'm not sure. I mean, I've probably worn them in some interesting venues, to be totally honest. I wore one to work once, just for fun. I think people have come to expect that sort of thing from me, though. Yeah. You know, I say do you. I always remember this magnet my parents had on our refrigerator when I was growing up that said, or read rather, didn't speak, right? The magnet didn't speak. Oh my gosh, my mom would just be laughing right now. She's an English teacher. Anyway, the magnet indicated to just be yourself because no one's better at it than you are. Right? Yeah, just a little bit of motivational thinking there for a minute. Okay, well, let's get back into it because I definitely don't want to keep you long. It's a beautiful day out there. I want to invite you to do something to fill yourself back up. I know that you have tough jobs, and so let's see if we can bring this puppy home. Okay, I set something up for you while we were on break, and where I want to begin is in that, remember when we talked about the beginning and how maybe it would be helpful to understand the process that the employment services side has already done with the customer. In other words, how did they even get into Workforce One Connect? How did this whole thing start or happen? Well, what we're going to find is that our customers are going to need to be at the center. It's up to them whether they want to establish Workforce One Connect. And I think in terms of who might be most likely to say, yes, I'd really like to use Workforce One Connect, it's going to be people that have a smartphone or a tablet because it does require that it's an app. You can't use it on a desktop computer. And, you know, folks maybe who are a little, you know, they like technology enough to think that an app is going to be fun. Luckily, the numbers that use things like Facebook tell us that a lot of people do have some relationship with technology. Look at the number of users that they have. I think another thing that might be a predictor slightly, and I know this from the MFIP Connect pilot that was done by DHS, language matters too. And that's why we are actually building the app in multiple languages. What we are going to release initially is going to be the English version. We already are working on the Spanish version though. We had it translated by someone at Deed already. We're going to run it through some testing. It's not ready yet, but we are taking it very seriously to provide the app in multiple languages. We are starting with 3 languages. When we go there, it'll be Spanish, Somali, and Hmong will be our languages that we're going to do in addition to English. Just to be clear though, on the languages issue, the app will be translated. You noticed, remember the app with the words at the bottom like messages, contacts, resources, those will be translated. The actual text that appears to label fields that they fill out, that will be translated. Messages that display in the app that tell the customer this was successful or give the customer information, that will be translated into one of those languages. However, if I as the customer send a message in the message box that's in a foreign language, I submit it by clicking or selecting, that up arrow with my finger, I send it. The app's not going to translate the message that goes over to Workforce One into English. It doesn't do that. That would be magical, I know it would be, but it doesn't do that. And so when we talk about the app being offered in multiple languages, it's not a translator. What we're doing is we're trying to help the customers whose languages may be one of those 3 to be able to navigate the app, understand those fields, because they're in that language. And I do recognize that that could result in the customer then messaging back in their native language or their preferred language to the staff, and that then the staff will have to translate the message, because unless they speak that language, because that's what you'd want to probably store into Workforce One. The best thing that we can recommend in that case is going to be any kind of a translator that you might already have. You know, a lot of us use Google Translate. You can copy paste text into that and it will translate. And I know it makes mistakes too. I've laughed about it myself sometimes, how crazy it can be. I often use the Spanish translator because I am very much engaged in, I'm in the salsa community. So I sometimes get messages and I'm like, what does that mean? I don't understand. So I have to use the translator. Anyway, just thought you might be interested. So again, let's start with the story. Customer was offered the app. We have some really great marketing materials that we're going to be sharing with you, some of which are up on our website. I'm going to end this whole thing with some of that stuff, including a video that's being produced right now. We don't have it yet, but when we do, we will share it with you with probably some bells on. I'm excited about what it's going to mean. And there's going to be a couple of versions of even the video that we're talking about. One for customers that will be offered in multiple languages, and one for staff. The one that's for staff is being worked on right now. And that's actually going to come out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. It's Deed Communications doing the work there. There's also the written marketing materials, including some that you will be able to just give to your customer to say, is this right for me? So that decision, that's how they're going to be helped to make it, is that you will give them these materials and they can decide. So let's pretend that the customer decided, this app is for me. I like this idea, let's go for it. So what happens then? Okay, and this isn't you doing this either, which is why I didn't cover it in the first part. This is the ES worker. Okay. So what they're going to do, hopefully you are now seeing Workforce One. I'm going to pull up my little window. Is that the ES worker has come in, they're logged in, and what they've done is they've gone over to the mobile user link right over here, because Brenda, we're back to Brenda now. Brenda indicated that Brenda would like to use the app. They will go to the mobile user page. They will enter some things for Brenda. This was already done, and this is why I can't enter it right now, because it already happened. But what the ES worker did was enter a username for Brenda. What we're going to want to be done for that is the email address for Brenda. And the reason is because then, just like we talked about before with you with the My Preferences up here and entering your correct email address, we're going to find that using the username as the customer's email address, or rather flip it around, using the email address as the username for Workforce One Connect, the mobile app, is going to help the customer remember their username, hopefully. So it's probably, you can all probably relate to accounts that you have. And doesn't it help you remember if it's your email address versus some, derivation of your name? Probably it does. So this is going to be set up, and it does give some information too. Is the person logged? When was the last login date? And onward. So we can track more things under mobile user. This was set up by the ES worker, so it's before you got engaged in it, really. Okay, now let's pretend I'd have to switch my hats, right? Because now I am Brenda. And I realize that it says welcome EB. This is an example of what welcome email the customer will receive about their app. So notice this, they're told, step 1, download the app, log in with your temporary password, and they get one of these right here. This is the username. So we are telling the customer their username again. So like, let's say that they didn't write it down, they forgot it, it's in the email. And then they're told, once you log in, you will have to change your password. And then you will receive an email confirming. Thank you for choosing Workforce One Connect. So this provides a description of all the things the customer needs to do that hopefully is written in a way that is helpful to the customer. So that's the email that the customer receives. So now that the whole mobile user has been set up, now the customer can start sending those messages, just like we talked about before. I want to provide one more thing related to this issue, and that's this. This is a user guide that helps walk staff through the process of setting up the mobile user. Pretty much everything I just indicated to you is covered in this user guide. It gives you a flavor also for what we mean when we indicate user guide. Screenshots, descriptions of what to do. That's what this does for you. And again, really, this is something that ES Worker, they're handling it. Just wanted you to have visibility to it though. Okay, now let's get out of these documents here and go back to Workforce One so that we can talk about some of the rest of the stuff. I'm going to switch my profile back over to the financial worker that I was earlier. Now I'm like you all again. Okay. Let's talk about the rest of Workforce One. Some of the things that you might find interesting or helpful. The things that I'm covering now, though, right now, are not things that you are going to have to do necessarily, but things you could choose to do, access that you will have. Let's start with looking or actually reviewing again our customer. What did I do to get there? Sometimes I go too fast, sorry. What you want to do is you want to select Brenda off the dashboard. Did you know that you have a couple of ways to bring up customers though? And I've only really shown you this one, so maybe this is a good opportunity to explain that you have an ability to do a person search. Right here from the top menu, search person. I can type in the name. Like, what if I know the full last name? Great. Let's pretend for a second though that Bonnie has actually been given a name like mine that's very difficult to remember. Okay then, well, let's say that we just know the first 3 letters. If I put an asterisk at the end of it, it's a wild card. And it'll bring up anyone with the last name beginning with C-O-N. And I will find that Brenda is right here in the middle. So person search is another way to bring up individuals. This is going to be very helpful for any of the staff who are not case assigned to get to these records. It's going to help them to know search person, because then they can pull up these accounts. This is how to do it. There's another way to get through into the messages that I'm going to cover in a little bit once we get through more of what's inside of a person's record. So far, we've talked really about just this, connect messages, because that's the new part. The rest of this right here are existing things that we've had in Workforce One. These are the moments where I really wish I could see all your faces, but I'm going to put you over here in case anyone wants to come on camera. Because I think there might be some things in here that surprise you, that maybe you didn't know were in Workforce One before, or maybe, I don't know, just it's an awareness thing. So let's go down what we call our left navigation. Contact information is stored in Workforce One. Probably not a surprise here at all, because this information is flowing initially from Maxis. We do get some contact information from Maxis. But then often what happens is the ES worker is actually going to come in and update contact information, because maybe they find out that there was a change of address. And then of course I know that has to be made on the Maxis side as well. One of the things that we've talked about with DHS is in the future to maybe have a dual interface, meaning that we can pass information from Workforce One over to Maxis and not just information from Maxis over to Workforce One. All that said though, we know that Maxis is the system of record and we don't want to be overriding things in Maxis. So I don't think that that's ever going to be the plan, even if we were to ship information over there. It might just be in a status update that would automatically go over to Maxis. It's something we're talking about. And oh, by the way, you know, as part of that conversation, I'm pretty sure that we'll be also talking about how we could further integrate Workforce One Connect into Maxis. You know, so the future could be quite interesting, right, as we further improve these systems that we work in. Okay, so this is where we store like the address information, any alternate contacts, the email, phone number. That's where this is all at, the contact information. You will have read-only access, just like I do here. Demographics information. This information we hold because we need it for a lot of times for evaluation purposes. We need to know for outcome data, reporting, which demographics are they falling under. These things get reported often to the federal government, to the state legislature, in summary form, of course. This information in part comes from Access and then can be updated by those who have update rights to this particular page. If you're concerned about this particular field here, the Social Security number, we actually have a security feature in Workforce One that does not allow me to view the SSN if I'm not assigned to the record or working for an agency who's assigned. So it's something we try to lock down. We don't put it on many pages. In fact, this is the only page it displays in totality. We don't use it in reports either because we're pretty careful. Instead, what you're going to find is this field, the record ID, Workforce One record ID. That's the number that we use to identify the individual. And this is a meaningless number outside of Workforce One. You probably feel a little good knowing these are here, right? Your PMI and your case number. These are coming over from the Maxis interface. Okay, we talked about mobile user already. We're going to skip over these two things because they're really not relevant. But just so you know, Deed has a product called MinnesotaWorks.net. It's our job bank. So this means that our customers are putting resumes in and they are matching up with employers who are doing searches for individuals who match their criteria. This allows this particular feature. It connects into Minnesota Works and allows assigned staff to view the resumes of the customers who have put them in Minnesota Works. It helps probably with case management on the ES side especially. Case notes. Remember when we talked about this? I know you have case notes in Maxis. These are the case notes in Workforce One. These case notes are going to be entered. I'll just show you the quick. These are the last 5 case notes. These are going to be entered by your ES worker. But notice what they can be about. A whole bunch of things, right? These are example case notes. NOITS was printed maybe, notice of intent to sanction. That's an auto case note, by the way. We have some things that generate automatic case notes in Workforce One. That's an example. Maybe there's a new appointment. There's an appointment scheduling feature in Workforce One. Kind of cool. And oh, by the way, this was one of those great pieces of feedback we got during our Learning Network meeting from one of the, it might even be someone on this training who came up with this one. Maybe not though. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Anyway, what they said was, wouldn't it be great if the customer would get automatically notified of an appointment or an upcoming session that has been scheduled in Workforce One? You know, that it would send that information straight into the app for the customer? Well, we built that because it was asked for during one of the Learning Network meetings. I think that's going to be a great feature, right? Because it's going to actually, without you taking any action, if the customer's using Workforce One Connect, it'll push that appointment and session if they have a session coming up, like if they were doing a resume writing or job interviewing session that was tracked in Workforce One, it would push that over into the app. There's also going to be some other things that in the future I think we're going to want to push into the app, like the employment plan, which is something else that you have the ability to view in Workforce One. Okay, so these are case notes. Now let's say that you want the whole shoot and match of case notes, not just the last 5. In this case, because this is a test record that I'm using, there's not a ton of case notes, but you are going to find when you review other MFIP customers in Workforce One that most often you're going to find quite a lengthy history of case notes. The case note has a feature that allows you to read them like a book. You can basically go, okay, next in list, and then previous in list, and you flip through them. You can read the notes. And these again are entered in Workforce One case notes. Okay, other things, and I think probably some of this won't be super exciting. These are parts of the stubs of the records that are created. So we keep track of who is serving the person, which staff are assigned, where are they getting services, do they have an employment plan, when did that happen? This is just an overall view, and this is called program summary to us. The eligibility enrollment information, again, not super exciting or interesting. This is, remember when I talked about how it actually happens? DHS referral queue sends that referral. We have the referral coming from Maxis and it shows up in that DHS referral queue. It doesn't actually get sent there. It gets sent there, not by that. So by Maxis into the DHS referral queue in Workforce One, someone processes the referral. They add that application, that tiny page in Workforce One. Then they add that enrollment. This is where things like the enrollment date come from. in Workforce One. And that matters to us because that's the point at which the person is considered an active enrolled case in Workforce One. You might be wondering, well, when can a customer start using Workforce One Connect, the mobile app? Do they have to be enrolled? No. What we determined during the joint application design session when we asked for feedback from staff was that actually we would want to be able to have the customer start using the app as early as when they're in a pending program sequence. And that means that they've got an application in. And when I say application, I mean in Workforce One. Remember that tiny page I described that gets completed from the referral queue? That's what we're talking about. So at the point that they have that done, and there's a case assignment present, because that has to be entered on that page, in that tiny page in Workforce One, then the customer can have a mobile account in Workforce One Connect. So it could happen before enrollment in Workforce One. Okay, so again, these 2 pages, I don't know if it's super exciting to you because there's not a ton of information, but here's where it gets exciting. Plan. You're going to have the ability to review the customer's employment plan if it's helpful. It's in here. I can select it. And this was completed with the ES worker. And now I have a viewer. What you are now looking at is the viewer inside of Workforce One. So I haven't left Workforce One at all, right? I'm still here. I also have the ability, and this is in our user guide. So if you're like, oh, what are we doing here? This little disc, which makes me just laugh because I figure, is this going to mean anything in the future to anybody who didn't grow up when, you know, some of us who are a little older grew up? I mean, I remember the big floppy disks, and I remember our teachers saying, don't scratch those, don't sit on them, don't break them. I mean, it was our Apple IIe's. That was fun, you know, before there was even any type of graphics in computers, and all you had was this connected keyboard. Things have sure changed, haven't they? Okay, so the way to get this employment plan into a format that maybe looks a little better than the viewer, it's going to be this PDF version here. And what that does is then I can open that up here at the bottom. Remember when you saw this little window at the bottom before when you were downloading documents? This just opens up my my PDF, and then now I've got it kind of in a better format maybe than in the viewer. And I could save it. I could print it. Not that I'd probably want to do that anymore, but you know, I have access now to the employment plan straight up in Workforce One. I didn't have to ask for it. I can just go get it myself as a financial worker. It's like self-service, right? Kind of nice. Now, how about this one? I bet you care about this. Participation hours. They're entered in Workforce One. And now, this is what it looks like. So this is a summary. For April 2021, this is what was entered by the Employment Services worker for the participation hours. And of course, we know that this can be something that if there aren't participation hours, if they're not what they're supposed to be, we can end up in sanction. So this is probably a pretty important piece of information that you'll have read-only access to. Notice that we're also pushing things from Maxis over here. And this is kind of probably pretty valuable to be able to have it all in one place. Okay, more information. Remember we talked about case assignment. Really important page. This is what I was talking about when I was saying, is the person case assigned? And when I say person, I should say staff. Is the staff case assigned to this case? Remember when we were talking about private messages and how those can only be read by those assigned to the case? This is what I mean by assigned. This case assignment right here, super important. Right? Case assignment. And these things change. Other users have the ability to transfer cases. You, of course, will see this in read-only format. And something else that I want to share. Financial and childcare workers will be reflected as not changeable, really for anybody, including our team. And the reason is because we rely on Maxis for this information. We don't want people messing with it. So that's just a little bit of a for your information. These other roles right here, these are things that can be added and changed by those with the proper rights to do so. We have an important rule in Workforce One to be aware of, and I'm betting you do too in Maxis. If the person's enrolled, like this is right here, the primary staff must exist. meaning that the person cannot have 0 primary staff assignment and still be enrolled. Why? Because our security module, remember when we started with that fun table that had the boxes and the lines between it, you know, the umbrella rules thing? The way that we know who owns this case and who can view it and who's in charge is this primary staff assignment. And so this is training agency, right? So training agency, St. Paul has control of the case. And we always have to have that primary assignment. When a case is exited, which you wouldn't be doing, that would be, again, the ES worker, they're using this page right here, exit. They can end that case assignment, this primary. They don't have to have one after exit. Some choose to continue a case assignment post-exit, and that would be true when follow-up is happening. When they're making sure perhaps that the person, if they exited to employment, yay, that they kept the job. That would be a reason for follow-up. Okay, a couple more things. Document summary. Remember when we talked about a little bit about electronic document storage, and I had indicated that it was our understanding that you are actually downloading documents from messages and storing them in your own local EDMS. This is actually Workforce One's electronic document storage. Some workers will choose to use it, and that's okay, right? You know, it's there for them. This is where you can go, though, as the financial and childcare worker, or childcare worker, not and, the financial or childcare worker, to review the documents that a previous worker, an employment services worker, has put on this case that they've stored in Workforce One. I can open them by selecting the link here, or by selecting right here, this PDF little image. If I prefer to just select the image, takes me to the same place, which is to this document. Right, yeah, there it is. I mean, this is going to get longer. It looks really quite small right now because we're in a test environment. I think you might discover and be surprised at the number of documents that are actually stored here and how helpful it could be to have copies of these documents. All right, let's hopefully finish big here with at least with the left navigation tour that we're doing. So remember when I told you that we get a lot of information from Maxis through the referral? It starts with the referral, actually. We actually have a page right in Workforce One that has Maxis information. And for the very first time, I think what's really exciting for us is that we'll have the financial workers. You'll be able to check this page out and be like, well, yeah, that's what I see in Maxis. Good. Or scarily, if you discover that it is not, now we've got that review in place. I love the possibilities that this presents for us. Because in the past, this was something that, you know, the ES worker was relying on. It's my understanding that many of them do not have access to Maxis, or most, I'm not quite sure. Either way, this was the information that they were getting in Workforce One, but it's coming from Maxis. And it gets updated, obviously. Things like this are probably of great interest, I would imagine. And this, months on MFIP. Right, so we're pushing all this information. Children, what are their ages? And even this. This is how they knew who was working with the case before. It was coming from Maxis. We know their privacy level. Remember when you talked about a private case? An entire case is private? That's this. Okay. Now, how do we know when Maxis has a change? Well, we get an incoming status update. Some status updates automatically change information in Workforce One, and others do not. It depends on the type of status update. We have quite a lot of coding, as we call it, that decides which kind of an update is it. Is it an FYI that then the worker looks at and says, whoop, I better make a change? Or is it something that forces the update? If it's something like an address, it's not going to force the update. And the reason is because we don't know for sure that the address, the change that's coming, is truly the newest address for the person. Sometimes what we find happens is if the updates get pushed in a way that they're out of order, it can create some real goofiness over here. So sometimes we don't want to make an assumption. But when it's something big like active, inactive, then we're going to force changes here. So it just depends on what the status update is. But this is the incoming, and it's important to separate these two. incoming versus outgoing. This is the incoming, and that's why we label as such, incoming status update. And the other thing to give you a hint here, when we say DHSIX, we mean the interface. So these things are coming from the interface. And lastly, the referral. Now, we had to put in a bit of a change on this one, which is not here yet. We realized this when we were testing, that you would not be able to get into the referral as things stand today, which is not what we want. This is what started the whole shebang out, right? The case. It came from Maxis, the referral comes to the referral queue, and then it gets accepted, and we go through the application and enrollment. That's all happening with the ES side, right? We want you to be able to get in here. So we're going to make a slight adjustment to our security to be able to allow you to select a link here, and then you're going to be able to review the referral in case it's helpful. Okay, two last things. The NOITs. This is all entered in Workforce One. The Notice of Intent to Sanction. It happens here. There is a form that they are completing, and I'm showing you the view of it, okay? This isn't the actual page that they do the entry on. It looks slightly different then, but this is what it produces. And I bet this looks familiar because you probably end up getting a copy either mailed or emailed to you from the ES worker. But here's the actual form, and it's stored here. You could just go pick it up. Now, what I am not suggesting, to be very clear, because DHS has trained me well, is that you don't do your current processes. You still need to do your processes of notifying the customer, even though there's a lot of, maybe some added benefit of having you and the ES worker being able to collaborate within Workforce One. There still needs to be the case noting that's happening in Maxis or MEC squared if you're a childcare worker. There still needs to be the notification of the customers in the way that you do that today. This doesn't take the place of that, but maybe it gives you information faster. And if you do have information faster, maybe then it's easier for you to coordinate with the team that's providing services to this customer. One last thing, outgoing status update. Now this is something that the ES worker is using to inform you of something. Once again, what if you can just come here and there it is. Now this one opens up some really interesting possibilities because let's pretend for a second that the ES worker says, hey, guess what? I generated an outgoing status update and it's in Workforce One. Because this is where they do it. And normally probably what they've been doing is they've been selecting this little disk icon that we all can chuckle about. They're creating a PDF and then they're sending it to you. So maybe we can actually have some efficiencies here. And I would look to DHS, just as I say these things. These are just sort of possibilities that I started dreaming about on everyone's behalf. It's really going to be up to DHS to determine if with this, new situation, if they want to make any adjustments to how y'all are communicating. And I think, from what I've heard from them, they're going to definitely want to hear back from their providers on what do you find maybe is helpful that maybe wasn't a possibility before because you were in those different systems. Okay, well, I'm going to check my agenda here and make sure that I haven't skipped anything important. Yep, looks good. All right, helpful reminders. Here we go. There's a few of those. Okay, tickets. Let's talk about tickets for a minute. Now, John is on our business analyst team. He's one of many illustrious BAs that we have that are very helpful. They love our customers, you all, and they get a lot of tickets. They do. So I just want to kind of give you some do's and don'ts for tickets. Let's do that. First of all, where do you submit a ticket? How do you do it? Do you remember from the very beginning of the class when I talked about this footer on the login page? That is how you submit a ticket. So if I select this link here down at the bottom, it's going to pop open a page. Before I do that, here's a little bit of a tip though. If the problem that you have is related to login, you can either resolve it yourself or call this number. And here's the either or. Let's pretend for a second that I'm not logged in. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to come back and do this a little later at the very end. If I'm not logged in, there's a link that indicates forgot username password. I can select that and change my password if I forgot it. You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to put a ticket in. I mean, who wants to admit they forgot their darn password anyway? We're creating a little self-service for you. You can just do it yourself. No shame there. Not any shame. One little tip though. If you type in your password 5 times wrong, now you're locked out. And now you've got to notify somebody to get you unlocked. So if you're logging in and it's not taking it, what I would recommend is just give up after maybe 2 tries and then just change your password. Change it yourself. You can change your password with the question. You have a secret question and answer. You're going to set all this up when you log in the first time to Workforce One. And if you answer your secret question correctly, you can change your password. So then there's no need to ask for any help from anybody. It's just you do it yourself. Perfect. Yes. Okay. So let's say though that you locked yourself out or that you didn't log in frequently enough to keep your account active. And by the way, how do we know what is frequently enough to keep your account active? If you carry a caseload, and that's going to be you all, 45 days. Every 45 days you need logged into Workforce One. If you don't, your account will go inactive. That is for security reasons, because we do not want to just have these active accounts out there. What if somebody leaves? You know, there is a different process though. If somebody actually leaves, we don't just want to count on that inactivity. There's actually a termination. So accounts have 3 statuses. Active, which means, hey, I'm logging in. I'm doing something. I'm working. And again, 45 days to keep that active. Every 45 days log in. Inactive means that you haven't probably logged in for 45 days, so it flipped to inactive. And then if you don't log in for another 45 days, or 90 days total, the account gets terminated. And what that means is, essentially, a terminated account, that is to us that this user is no longer going to be coming back into Workforce One. It's just, you know, it's probably like they left, right? They're not doing this job anymore, and thus their account needs to be terminated. For a terminated user to be able to get access back into Workforce One, they have to fill out a form. Now, in your case, because you're coming over from the Maxis interface, it's going to be a little different. But all this to say, if you lock yourself out because you typed in your password 5 times wrong, you're going to have to call the number down at the bottom, this number. Okay, or if your account is inactive or terminated, that's another reason. But let's pretend it's none of those things for a minute. Let's pretend it's not a login issue, not a login issue at all. You have a question about Workforce One, or you've got problems accessing a record in Workforce One. Notice that I'm not saying if you have a Workforce One Connect issue from your customer, because we're going to cover that in our support pyramid later. So let's put a little bookmark in that one, the Workforce One Connect part. And instead, let's talk about you have an issue. You, as the financial worker, have an issue with Workforce One. Your agency might have already a process for vetting those questions, concerns, etc. through one person. Some agencies do that. It works pretty well. And I wouldn't say maybe even through one person, but maybe through a group of people. Now, because you are getting training and you are considered the trainers for your agency, that very well could be you that gets it vetted through you. And thus you are the person submitting a ticket. This link right here is how you communicate with our team. The issue type, is it a bug, meaning something's wrong? Data fix, this would be in data in Workforce One that's wrong. Login issue, which again, I remember, probably don't want to do tickets for that. Call the number or fix it yourself if you're not locked out or inactive. Is it a Maxis problem? Maybe there's data in here that are wrong from Maxis. And you're looking at your Maxis screen and going, what the heck? Let me put in a ticket about this one. Page crash. We hate those on our team. And oh, by the way, when the page crash happens, we already get notified, even if you don't even put in a ticket, because we're Big Brother. We're monitoring our site like crazy. Question, and then Workforce One Connect. Now, I know it's listed here. We're going to talk about that as a separate issue though, because what we're really trying to avoid is getting an onslaught of Workforce One Connect tickets, and there's a good reason for that. I'll explain it when I talk about support. So I'm going to bet that in the earlier days, it's probably going to be this. Record ID, remember we talked about that's our identifying number. Never, ever send SSNs in a ticket. Please don't do it. Please don't put a social security number in there. Think about it like this. Pretend that this information is your information. Just don't put it in the ticket. Use that record ID. We just don't ever want to expose our customers' private information. Record ID is meaningless. Somebody gets a hold of that, doesn't matter a hill of beans. Good luck with that one. Programs affected, often for you, it's going to be this one right here, right? There's also diversionary work in here. And there's a SNAP in here too. Okay, and you're going to describe your issue. Notice that it auto knows who I am. So I didn't have to enter any of this, and it knows who I work for. Oh, also remember there's spell check. So if you're like me and you wait for the phone to autocorrect, just go ahead and use the spell check button. Sometimes your browser is going to underline things you spelled wrong too. Then submit the ticket. And then it goes into our ticketing system where we keep track of every ticket that is submitted. And then we can assign those tickets. We have business analysts on our team who answer them. They get assigned one business analyst per week, and then they rotate. And then they monitor. They monitor the tickets coming in. They make sure we respond. Our goal is to respond to all tickets within 72 hours. And my guess is that we actually respond quicker than 72 hours. In a lot of cases, probably depending upon what our team is doing at the time. Okay. So I think I've covered a lot of things with regard to ticketing. So I want to talk about support with regard to Workforce One Connect, and then I'm going to come back to some of the other little tidbits that we have in the helpful reminders. They're all in, if you're wondering where I'm getting all this stuff from, check those agendas that we sent. Oh, thanks, Kurt. That's really nice. It really does help. I know that our VA team works super hard, and when they get that kind of feedback, it means a ton to them. It really does. So thank you for that. I know I will tell you this because I know some of you are brand new to our world and we're new to yours. Our team cares immensely about the work that you do. They care about your customers. They do. I mean, I think what you're going to find is although this is a technology team, I work hard as the product owner to make sure that they stay connected to you and to the people you serve so that they understand the importance of the work that they're doing. So it's not just a matter of, hey, they work for Microsoft and they're building Word. Word has its own uses and it's great too, but they actually work in service and they are helping you to serve your customers. And I always want to keep that connection really tight. And I know it means something to them. I know that they feel it in their hearts, that they're doing mission-based work. It matters. So even though we're DEED and even though we're techie, we care. We care deeply about what you're doing, very much. Okay, so let me talk about quickly some of these other little tidbits with regard to support. Okay, I want to show a document here now. Just give me a second here. I'm just going to stop sharing for just a brief moment while I pull up the right document so you don't have to look at me trying to find stuff. Okay, customer support guide. Here we go. Good, I got it. Let's see, check this out. We're gonna look at the desktop and we're gonna look at the customer support. Okay, now what this is an explanation of how we're gonna manage our customer support for Workforce One Connect. What I mentioned before about our whole submit a ticket and we track the tickets and our response time. Our BA team right now has, I gotta think about this. We have about 5 people who respond to tickets, I believe, because sometimes we get a little help from John. John, you popped it into chat, so I did read it. I like your dedication though, buddy, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so our team has about 5 people that are BAs or acting as a BA, which means that with Workforce One Connect, things are going to change pretty dramatically. Workforce One right now as a case management system has about 2,100 users. That would be our ES side, basically. When we add you all to it, the financial workers and childcare workers, you are actually going to outnumber them. as users. So our user base will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 users. So it's doubling nearly. And what that means effectively is that a lot more people might have questions, right? Because you're going to be using it. And then add to it that we're going to be adding a mobile app. You know, that's what this is all about. Customers are going to use that. Well, obviously they're not going to submit tickets, right? Let's not have them submit tickets to our team. But just imagine how this whole thing could just kind of balloon, right? And that's why we have to have a customer support pyramid. That's what this document's about. And you received this document. Heidi sent these out. Thank you, Heidi, to all of you before. That would have been yesterday, sometime around, I think it was about 5 o'clock, maybe a little before 5. What this explains is the pyramid. I don't know about you, I like the pictures. Customers right here. So let's say the customer has a question about WF1 Connect. They're going to contact their counselor. And when we say counselor, we mean the ES worker. But like, let's say that the ES worker isn't engaged yet and they contact you. That's okay if that happens. But just so that you know, we aren't expecting you to manage all the questions that ever happen from WF1 Connect. We, because DHS told us this, we assume the ES worker is sort of the person that is the central part to this account, right? Because the ES worker is the one creating it. And likely what's going to happen is the customer is going to have questions early on if they have them. So hopefully what's going to happen is it's going to funnel to that ES worker. Can you ask questions? Could you be part of the pyramid? Yes, you can. We're not excluding you. Then the questions need to go to the super user or trainer. So you're probably thinking, oh geez, is that us? Yep. You're here today and you are a trainer, and that means yay to your provider and thank you to you, because it means that you get what's going on. So you're already one step up in the pyramid from that main base, right? So people are going to ask you questions, and we're going to give you those user guides to help you with answering them. Then we're going to have a cross-agency champions. And who are they? They are volunteers. We are not going to tell anybody that they've got to be part of that group. What is that group? Well, that group is a group of users who volunteered to help individuals at other agencies and maybe their own, because think of it like this. Every person in this group, this cross-agency champion group, is also one of these. It's just that the difference between this group, the super user trainer, and this group is that these folks are serving only the individuals in their own agency. They're answering questions for this layer down here. This group is saying, wow, you know, we really are in. We like this app. We like the supporting functionality in WF1. We know this. We are passionate about this work. We want to help other people, not just our own agency. And again, we understand that that is an offer that is very generous. We will not be asking anyone specifically to do it. We will be asking provider leadership, agency leadership, to tell us, do you have someone who wants to be in this group? And then the good news for those people is that they get to work with us, or maybe bad news, I don't know. I was totally joking that we should get some badges for these individuals because they are really helping us out. We've got to make this fun, right? Like, we've got to give them a little bit of swag because, you know, they're doing a solid for us and keeping support to be very responsive and quality, which is going to be something that we aim for right now and we achieve hopefully with our current support. But we want to make sure we can do that as we add new users and we add our customers into this mix. We want to keep our quality up, right? And that's going to be this pyramid that's going to help us do it. So right here is us. So remember when I talked about the 5 BAs essentially, plus Sherry, our database administrator, me, Heidi, you know, that's us right here. So this is how it's going to work again. Up this sort of pyramid, and an explanation here of who they are again. This document again was sent to you. Okay, so don't have to memorize it. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing that and I'm going to go back to my agenda and make sure that I've covered things. So I'm definitely going to get you out on time here. Okay, so a couple more tidbits in the helpful reminders part. So I'm going to go back over to WF1, and you can do these things with me too. Nothing stops you from doing that. If you are still kind of following along in the sandbox with me, you can continue to do that because I'm about to show you some things or demonstrate some things that are things that you can come along. Recent work. Recent work is useful to get into the last 20 accounts that you were in. Notice I've navigated in a variety of ways. I have done it from the caseload here off my dashboard. I've done it from the link here that was here, but I read the message, so now it disappears, right? I did it here. I've also done person search when I wanted to just find someone. Recent work is another way. It keeps track of the last 20 I was in. Why would I use recent work? Well, it saves me the trouble of doing a person search if I was into the account recently. Okay, another tip. And this one I don't think I'm going to try to demo because I think it just costs time. But we have something called a dynamic message area, which actually appears like about right here on the screen. It will give you an indication of whether something was successful. You're going to be looking for the green check marks. What you don't want are the red X's. That means something went wrong. You don't want those. So be paying attention when you're saving things in Workforce One. Yeah, John asked a question. I'll come back to that one. You just want to look for those, you know. Okay. Let's see what else. Oh, when you're saving information in Workforce One and there are maybe rules on the page about required fields, here's an example of that. Let's go into Brenda. Let's go over to Connect Messages. Actually, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to demonstrate one other thing that relates to this. There's actually two other things I want to show you. This option of mass message. We got this question in very early on in this project. Our users wanted to be able to send the same message to multiple people, again, customer, at the same time. This is mass message up under My Tasks, Mass Message. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select my programs. And just so you know, I could also select individuals that have a certain open activity. That would be in Workforce One. So this would be something ES workers are tracking. It's going to give me anyone who meets this criteria. So the staff assigned is me, and the programs are the 3 that I selected. I only have one person, because this is the sandbox, who has a mobile account. Normally what you would find, though, is that you would have a bunch of people to select from. So let's do a select all. And I bet this looks remarkably familiar to you, right? This is the same page as before. When we were in writing a conversation, we were starting one. This was that new conversation page. The difference between this one and that, though, is that this message goes to all the people that I've selected, and it gets stored in their accounts in Workforce One. So even though I'm creating it here from the mass message, so let me do this. Let me just say follow-up, conversation category. Oh, wait, you know what? No, I want to do something different here. I want to do event notification because that would be a reason I might send a mass message. Oh, there. Hello. So I could put a link, right? I could even attach a flyer to it. And then I can send the message. And what this accomplishes again is, and you know what, actually, I want to do something here. I want to throw an error. Boom. Okay, this is the tip that shows up in the agenda. Did you notice? Exclamation point next to the required field. How do I know it's required? There's a star over here, a red star. And then guess what? Here's the tip. The errors appear at the bottom of the page. We do this for accessibility reasons. We need to put them always in the same place, and the container is underneath the page. So the tip that I'm giving you is like, did you notice how it put the focus here on this field and the exclamation point is here? If I didn't know better, I might not know what the error is, right? And then I might go, well, hello, where is it? How do I know what I did wrong? It's down here. Okay. So let me fix it. Put it back the way I had it to event notification. Now it's complete. And now I can send my message without an error. Oh, do you remember when I talked about the green check mark? There it is. That's the happy thing I'm always looking for. Yippee, right? So that's the ability to mass message up here under my tasks. Okay, let me just see what else we've got that I wanna, we already covered my preferences. We talked about person search already. There's a couple more things that I just wanna kind of give you here, but I wanna make sure we don't run out of time. So, okay, I'm gonna take a quick look here. All right. One more thing with regard to actually resources. Remember when we talked about the Connect resources that show up for the customer in the app? The one that I displayed to you is the food shelf, as you might recall. They are actually found under Manage Program on the top menu. Select Connect resources. You can run a search and discover all the resources. You will have them in read-only fashion. If I select them, I can't change anything on the page. Some individuals will have the ability to actually add them, and then it goes through an approval process. There's a field called Approver. You can't see it because it's in the read-only status, but I bet if I do this, it'll work. I don't know if I have access though, so warning, maybe not. We'll try. Yep. Okay, so if I have the ability to add them, because I have that privilege, then notice that there's an approver, right? And that this one happens to be active. In order to make a resource active, it has to be approved. For the beginning, we will be the approvers, but eventually we're going to transition that over to those of you in the system who have this ability. Probably what you want to do as an agency is you want to have a small group of people doing these. Because it's a specialty role, right? You want to follow a certain writing style. We have a user guide for these that really provides some tips and tricks for doing it. So that's how the resource content gets into Workforce One Connect. It's up here through Manage Program, Connect Resources. You will see this in a different format though than I just showed it to you most likely. Most of you are going to have it like I originally showed it, which is in read-only format. Okay. Couple of last things. I know I've been saying that a while. The system's big, but you know, part of the reason why I focused heavily on just the Connect stuff first, because that's really what this is about for you. And the rest of these things, well, they're kind of like, I don't know why birthday cake's on my mind, but they're kind of like those extra little, you know, like the sprinkles. You can decide if you want to eat them or not. You know, you don't have to use these things that we're pointing out, but maybe you'll find them useful. One of those examples is advanced search. This is what we call our ad hoc reporting tool. It's overwhelming a bit. I'm just going to quickly show it to you, and yeah, you can be like, wow, this is okay. So how did I get here? Search, advanced search. Again, this is our ad hoc reporting tool. Notice all this. Okay, I'm not going to like make the most complicated search in history here, but we have all these different criteria that you can run advanced searches on to pull up data from Workforce One. It's pretty powerful, right? And I'm not going to put that one in there. An example of one that I kind of commonly do. I might want to pull up everybody who's, I don't know, enrolled. But if I do that, I've got to select my program, right? Which is, in this case, I chose MFIP. What if I also want just those that are case assigned to me? Well, there we go, currently assigned. And actually in this case, because I'm running it at the agency level, it's going to pull up everybody case assigned for this agency. And what if I want to know about people in a certain activity? I can pull that stuff in here. This is activities in Workforce One, to be very clear. What if I want people in a certain demographic? Remember when I showed you the demographics page? Check these things out. This is an interesting one, right? TANF MFIP recipient. That's because that field is part of a lot of our programs. Workforce One actually is the case management system for a lot of programs at DEED. in addition to the 3 from DHS. Case notes. I can run searches on those. I can run searches on credentials, on plans, on exit. We're just going to keep it simple though. And pull back. These are all of the currently assigned to this agency enrolled in MFIP. That's the search I just brought back. Now, advanced search can be used for sort of 2 purposes. To use it as a navigation tool. So like, let's say that I want to go into Al Connect's account because maybe I want to do something. And then I want to go back. So cool, right? Like a workflow almost. I want to do something with these records. Another thing I can do is a bunch of actions over here. I can create mailing labels. I can export to Excel. This is where I get a bunch of data out of Workforce One, or I can mass email them. So advanced search is a pretty powerful tool. And here's what I would say, because I know we have limited time. We actually do a class on advanced search. If it interests you, we have a class on reports and advanced search. I would invite you to sign up for that class, and you can do so right in Workforce One. And I know that many of you are still waiting for your actual production access to Workforce One. So if you have an interest in attending a class, I think in the short term, you could certainly contact our team, and you know how to do that because you have our email addresses. And we could figure it out. We can get you signed up for a class. So, you know, we spend hours kind of going through how this whole thing works, and we have a user guide for it. But, you know, these are just some of the tools that you have available to you in Workforce One. Okay. Oh yeah, this one's important. Don't want to miss this one. The Connect Messages search. So let's pretend the story here for this one. Let's pretend that you've got a situation where you've got a person who needs some help from another staff person, but they're not assigned to the case. We talked about the security rules before, so you know that it works, right? As long as that agency's serving them and they're not marked private, you know, the whole record. Well, what do I do then? What do I do to find my messages? And by my, I mean the ones that now pretend for a second, I wish I had a third hat. I'm no longer Megan, right? I am now helping Megan. Megan's out. I'm helping Megan. How do I find the messages? They're not going to be on my dashboard, right? Because I'm not on them. You know, I'm not Megan. Well, I'm going to go to Search, Connect Message Search. This is going to allow me to bring back all of the messages associated with a certain staff person. Now I'm logged in as, you know, Annie right now, so I brought back the messages assigned to Annie, but I could do this. I could, you know, pick somebody else. Like, let's see. Who might have some messages? I don't know, does Heidi? Let's find out. Oh yeah, Heidi does. Yay, Heidi. Okay, so I'm helping Heidi now. And I'm going to be able to bring back all these messages that are waiting for Heidi. And this again, search, connect message search. And I have the access to them. I can come in here because I work for the same agency as Heidi. And what I can do is I can go in and I can read reply, right? I can say, hello, Kathy. And then I can, you know, come in here and I can do what I need to do. I can reply to the message. I can send it. Even though I'm not Heidi, I'm helping Heidi out. And you know, let's say for a second that I want to make sure that I get the notification back that there's a message waiting because, hey, Heidi's out. I can just add myself to the conversation right here. So pretty slick, right? So again, connect message search. And I can manage the messages this way, so I don't even have to be assigned. All right. I think everybody's probably getting a little tired, so I'm going to try to wrap this up, huh? Good. Okay. Looking at my notes here for anything else. We talked about mass message. We talked about connect resources. All right. I'm going to have a question coming up here, so just a warning, a question for you all. One last thing, with regard to this sort of top menu that we've got going on for you. There's going to be some places that I think you'll want to get used to looking if you need some help. First of all, every page in Workforce One has help content. If I select the help, it's going to pull up the actual content for the page. And what it does is it describes all the fields on the page. gives me the purpose, and there might even be some tips. This one doesn't have any, but some tips for using the page. So if I find that I'm lost, I have no idea, what does this even mean? I can come in here and read the help for the page. How did I get that to show up again? In case you're wondering, this help link. What if though, what I really want is the entire help guide, all of it? Well, right here, help content. That's the help guide for the entire site. It's about 500 some pages now. So, you know, I would say don't go ahead and print that. And if you're having trouble sleeping, it might be a good place to go. As is the glossary. That's going to be every single field in Workforce One defined. I know, right? It's overwhelming. But the good news about the glossary, though, is that it actually has these nice little letters in here, so you can go to the specific field, or at least the letter of the field, and you can go through it that way. So in this case, it looks like we're about 151 pages. This is the sandbox, though, so it might even be bigger in real life. So both of these are located under resources. This is a very helpful place to go. Resources. This is where we keep all of our user guides. That's found under user how-to guides. Again, I'm in the sandbox, so it probably doesn't have all the links that the real production site has. But look at all these puppies. There's quite a few user guides. There'll be even more with Workforce One Connect. We'll get those loaded up. The Workforce One news. My goodness, is there a lot of stuff in here. This is going to be all of our release notes from ever, right? Look back here. There's some oldies but goodies here. Some old stuff here. We've got all of our release notes. We have all of the copies of our PowerPoints for our sprint reviews. The reason that this looks so old is, of course, because this is the sandbox. But in production, every month we put our new sprint review in there. Every month. And every release we do, we write release notes. So I would really recommend taking a look at them because those release notes provide a lot of details. I'll just give you an example of what they look like. And this is really tiny, so let's forget about that and go to 150. There we go. We provide some descriptions of what the change was, who asked for it, why we made it, that's the reason, which programs were impacted. Although this is a PDF, the one that I email out is actually an Excel spreadsheet that allows you to filter and sort. So we take this really seriously. We don't want you to be unaware of changes we're making. We also will put messages up warning you that we're going to take the site down to make changes. And we always try to take the site down after business hours, you know, and that could be as late as 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes it's 4:30 if it's a quarterly build because those are bigger. It takes us longer, but you will be warned about it. Other things in resources, change requests. And this is my opportunity to give a shout out to folks who have submitted really good ideas for how we can improve Workforce One. We put this ability to submit change requests at anyone's fingertips, whether you are a user or not, because there's actually on the login page a link to forms you might remember from the very beginning. Folks that don't have a Workforce One login can still submit change requests. Maybe supervisors might want to do that. What we do here is that we take any ideas you have. It's just a form you fill out. And funny enough, guess who manages the change requests? John does. He's waving at you right now. He's been helping me and he does our change requests. And I do too with him. So we talk about them. But remember that we do have to get things approved because the system is funded by DHS and by DEED. So they determine how we spend our time and thus the money that pays for Workforce One. Help desk ticket is just the same link that you find in the bottom. We're not going to cover this. Staff training. This is how you would sign up for training in Workforce One to come to Workforce One training. So this is for staff, for users, and including, remember, the advanced search and reports training. We talked about some of the rest of this stuff, so I think we're good there. I'm going to take a quick look here at the user guide, or sorry, the agenda. I think we're looking good here. Here comes the question. So in preparation, I'm going to put this over here for training because that's what's coming next. So we've done the training for you and now you turn around and do the training and you have a couple of choices. You can play this crazy video And just don't invite me because I don't particularly like to watch myself. Actually, it's really uncomfortable. Have you ever watched yourself in a recorded? Yeah, it's both the voice, because the way you sound in your own head is so different than in reality, isn't it? And then it's also the appearance thing. It's just watching your little tics, and you know, for me, I sit there and I go, oh no, did I have you know, repeated words, and that's all the things they tell you not to do in Toastmasters. Anyway, you can play this video if you want to. That's an option. And then you can maybe even have folks, you know, they could bring their computers, you know, they could have their computers while they're watching and they could try to follow along, I suppose. But the challenge with that, of course, is that there's a lot of setup that happens to allow you to be able to play with accounts. Like we had to create that spreadsheet that John shared in the very beginning of the training. We had to create those sort of fake accounts to allow you to log in. And we even had our database administrator create messages so that right away you would see a link to be able to reply to a message. So there's a lot of setup that happens. If you want to train on your own, doing it the way that we did it here today, not just watch the video and have kind of this collaborative discussion, please let us know as soon as possible so that we can help you with the setup process. And the email that we're giving you is Heidi's in this document. Thank you, Heidi, for your willingness. I'm sure some of the BAs will probably be assisting too with some of the setup if we need to do it. So this is going to be the thing. Now, I think right now, if you already know the answer, like you know you're going to watch your provider's watching the video, or if you know for sure you want to do the training, you want it hands-on, you want to have it virtually, and you want to go through this process like we did today, go ahead and chat it in the chat right now. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. If you want to talk to some folks, then you can just go ahead and email Heidi after the fact. But please do so as soon as possible, and here's why. We're trying for soft launch around May 20th. And so that means that we need you to get that training done in the coming weeks. Does it have to be as long as today's was? Maybe not. You can decide for your provider which of the parts that they really need to know. Maybe you decide they don't need to know all the stuff I showed you with regard to the top menu and the left nav. Maybe you just want to stick with those connect messages and maybe mass message, maybe the resources part, and you call it good. That's okay. That's why we want this to be tailorable for you. And that's why we gave you both the trainer agenda, as well as the student agenda, both of them, so that you can edit them if you want the Word documents. Okay, so we've got Kurt with an answer. I would like to use the video for training. Would we be able to use the spreadsheet you provided and just change our names to our trainee? Okay. Kurt, I love that you're thinking about how to do it. That's great. The problem with using the spreadsheet that we gave you is that then you would be using those accounts in our sandbox. And maybe that's okay, because maybe we're not doing another training between now and then. My guess is we're not, and maybe that's totally cool. And if that's the case, then sure, yes, you can use our spreadsheet. But this is going to be something I'm going to want you to follow up with Heidi to make sure that we're giving you the proper instructions. Because again, what if others are doing the same thing as you at the same time? Then we're going to probably have overlaps and problems, right? That's going to be the thing. That's why often what we've done in the past is we've set things up differently than the way that we do it, meaning that we keep you all in your own agencies, you have your own fake accounts, and then you're not stepping on each other's toes. So why don't you go ahead and email Heidi on it? But I like it. I like knowing. We will use the video. Okay, Liz, no problem. Keep in mind that we are here though for you. Even if you're showing the video and you're thinking, you know, you probably don't want to go through this whole like having them logging into the sandbox and etc. We are here to help you with this. If you have questions for our team, you know how to reach us. I would start with Heidi with the email address that you find in the agenda. Not me, not because I don't want to hear from you, but because often you'll find that I am it takes me a little while to respond, and I know that you probably will have more immediate needs. And what we can do is we can triage. We can have a BA get back to you as soon as possible. I want to close today by saying the following. You are extremely important to us as our soft launch providers. To be totally honest with you, when I received the emails first of all, from your agency leadership indicating that they wanted to be part of the soft launch, and then later your names as trainers. It was a treasure every single time. Because frankly, building an app means nothing if it doesn't help your customers and if you don't want any part of it. It's just basically us then building a field nobody ever uses. So the fact that you're willing to go on this journey with us at the very beginning, as you have, is extremely meaningful to us. And we are here for you to support you through this. You're not on your own. We want you to communicate with us, and we will not go for soft launch with your agencies until you are ready. But we are hoping that it's going to be around May 20. And the only reason why we're trying to target a date there is so that we can move to the next step, which is going to be that whole, like, you're rolling it out to your customers and they are able to take in what this app can do for them. And then we're learning things during that soft launch that cause us to maybe make adjustments, change user guides, maybe even make changes. That's what this is all about. And you will have a front row seat, and we really appreciate your focus on it. All right, so one last thing I want to actually share, in case you're not aware of it, is actually Deed's website. We have a little page for Workforce One on Deed's website. And why that matters, I'm just navigating there right now. Now I'm going to share it, and then we're going to be done. So here's the website address that I'll pop into the chat. There you go. And down here at the bottom, there's a nice staff how-to guide and a staff what to know about the app. These are 2 of our marketing materials that are ready to go for you. And Ma, yes, Ma, DHS has one too. So check this out. This is for you to use. Staff. So maybe as you are telling your trainees, hey, come to training, this is what we're talking about right here. This thing right here. Okay, so that's one of them. And here's the other one. What to know about the app. So this provides a little bit more background. Where did this thing come from? How does it work? Why does it matter? And these are for staff. We also have some materials for customers that will be coming out shortly. I mean, we have them done, but we didn't put them up on the website because here's the thing. We don't think of it as our responsibility nor our right to communicate with your customers. That's for you. So we're not going to be sending materials to them saying, hey, use the app, at least not now. It's going to be quite some time before we're going to do it, and we're going to do it collaboratively. So that's why they're not up on the website. For the
Hey, Annie.
Yes.
Actually, they are up there.
The customer ones are?
Yeah. So go there to the other tab. Can I see what?
Oh, is it over
Scroll
here?
up into the information. They're at the bottom.
They put them there.
Yeah. Click right there.
Okay. Well, we didn't send out an email about it, so customers would really have to know to go there. So
they look wonderful.
Do they? Yeah, let me show them. Here's the info flyer. So they're green. If they're customer stuff, it's green. If it's staff, it's blue. We tried to help here to sort this thing out so this eventually, when you are ready to tell your customers about it, because we've gone to soft launch, of course, you got to tell us first so we can flip it on, if you will. You can use these materials to let the customers know, and the how-to guide. This actually includes images straight up from the app. Cool. All right, we are at the end, and I don't want to keep you any longer than necessary. I just want to say thank you again to you all. And Kurt says, I do have a question if I can explain my questions from earlier in our process that may help on what I'm asking. Kurt, do you want to do that here and so we can maybe end the recording and you want to hang a little bit? Is that what you're asking to do?
If I can, yes. Okay,
absolutely, we can do that. So just stick on it, and maybe if I could ask Heidi and Ma to stay, and maybe John, anyone else from DHS is also welcome to stay if you're still hanging on with us too. then we can see about that. But I want to thank everyone else for coming, and just again say how much we admire what you're doing, how grateful we are to you. It's been a really tough year, and we know that our customers are suffering and they're struggling, and you are an inspiration to us. It is an absolute honor to be able to do this with you. Please get in touch with us if you need our help. We will be in touch with you. Thank you for your attendance today. Have a wonderful day. Get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. Thanks, everybody.